Yeah. And so, Mark, I'm going to turn this over to you to kind of give us an update from, your perspective on kind of where the congregation's been and where you see some of the challenges going forward are. And then if you do want to share the screen, you have the ability to do that as well. So it's sort of up to you how you want to do that.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to share the screen this morning, but obviously, we're coming up on the anniversary of being out of the sanctuary and not being able to meet in person. And one of the drawbacks of that has been that we just don't have an opportunity to share what's going on with the congregation. The council doesn't. They're not in coffee hour physically to answer questions that pop up here and there. And so the council thought it would be a good idea. I mean, I don't know why we didn't really think about it earlier, other than that we're all dealing with many different things that are going on in life. And but we just said, it's time to kind of bring people up to speed a little bit. And also because we are facing a bunch of significant items that we have to kind of wrestle with and juggle in the next few months. So I figured that would be a good time to bring that up with the council. And then after this, I'll pop over into the coffee hour. So if anyone has questions, and at that point, I'll be there to maybe chat with them if that's available. And then, people can always email or call if there's questions as well. But as we kind of mark the anniversary of being online, obviously a great deal of the council's energy and attention, at least early on, has been over the last number of months, has been how do we continue our main activities and functions as our saviors, which is really worship, spiritual support and education of congregants, and mission of service to others, both locally and in the worldwide. And some of that stuff has obviously had to take a much different approach. And as most of you or people who are on the live feed right now know, our worship is now by way of Sunday morning Facebook Live reflections, and then over the last few months we've added in the drive-in worship. So there's been a lot of activity around how do we get that off the ground. And so I do want to take an opportunity just to do a shout out and to Dan and to Martin, because you guys have really pivoted, so quickly, and had to learn so much more, so many more things to do. How do you get this to work? And just amazing work that you guys have done. And that can't be easy because you both have basically people facing jobs, and that just cannot be as satisfying as what we were used to when we were able to gather on Sunday mornings. So I obviously to everyone, but our council's deep gratitude for your efforts there. And then also there's other people in the background. So on the Sunday morning drive-in, I want to make sure that we identify Bruce Feenstra and Lauren Stiles and others who have pitched in to help the technology there. April Bell, who has helped you, I know, along the way in technology to do a lot of the things that you're able to do. But we've also focused on how do we transition beyond just the worship, all the other stuff we do. And so, we have the peer-to-peer team ministry that's being headed up by Cheryl Johnson now. And that's being done almost completely remotely. And they're starting to get a little bit of the traction and bringing the congregation along with some of their activities. So that's been fantastic. Confirmation has been, shout out to Carl Pfeiffer and Craig Lingell, who have just, been keeping that program running. Dan, I think you and your Merry Elves have been helping out with the Holy Ground Project kits that you drop to the younger children in our congregation that they can work on as a family at home. That's been awesome. And then you and Martin have been continuing on with adult Bible and book studies to kind of feed the soul there, as well as many other things that have really kind of, as you've mentioned, have been new things that we kind of would like to keep going after we're able to transition to in person. But the podcast, the YouTube worship rituals, and kind of meditations, the guided labyrinth meditations. Again, thank you to you, the GTU students that you've kind of working with on these projects. Martin, Eileen Levan, who helped with the Taizé service that's up on YouTube. Those are all those, you know, wonderful add-ins that we've been able to at least keep a connection to the church in this, you know, obviously a real difficult time. And then of course now we've added on a new seminary student in the Ministry and Context program, Sam Ledoux, who's going to be with us for 2 semesters, which is fantastic for us, a new fresh viewpoint and someone who's questioning how to be a minister to the world. And I think that's going to be an awesome thing. Again, it's too bad we are not in person, but you know, we are trying to leverage as much as we can out of technology. So yeah, those are the things that have really kind of absorbed us. I think since the shelter in place kind of took place, you know, late, I guess it was mid-March last year. But the other stuff doesn't stop either. I mean, we've had to deal with all the plant, you know, our facilities and plant issues, and so that's really what we're kind of, I think the spring we're really focusing on. I mean, we've been working with it in piecemeal, but there's a lot of things coming up, and I wanted the congregation to be aware of. Is number one, we have Dan and Martin going on kind of back-to-back sabbaticals. Dan's going to be taking off in I think it's early to mid-April, all the way through the end of July. And Martin's going to be finishing up he took half of his sabbatical last year, which was, unfortunately, he had all these great plans and they just kind of all went up into thin air, you know, which is unfortunate for him. But he made the most of it, took a portion of his sabbatical, and then he's going to take off July and August to complete his sabbatical time. And so obviously for the congregation, how do we fill in on those periods, you know, the period of time that you and Martin are gone? And you know, we have lined up Janet Katari, who's going to step into Dan's shoes, mostly to kind of keep our worship going, our Sunday morning activities. But to just kind of add to that, Skip Ordway, our office manager for a number of years now, has announced that he is going to be retiring at the end of June. So we have to layer into that, how do we find a replacement or replacements for Skip? And how do we do that in a way that we're not bringing on a new person when our senior pastor is out on sabbatical? So we're working hard to kind of figure out what do we need. And, you know, because obviously Skip's job, when I think I was on his hiring committee years ago, and that job looks very different than when he first came in. So we're busy trying to come up with a job description or job descriptions, and then we'll have to start the search and the interviews to hire new people. On top of that, we are coming up to our year's end, which is always where our nominating committee for the council for next year starts to ratchet up and make phone calls because we have people going off council. So we're going to have to start that process again remotely, but we're going to be doing that, and that's another layer we have to add on over the next few months. And then we have a couple of other changes just in terms of facility, what we're wrestling with. So we're bringing on a new janitorial contractor, so we're having to get that up and running. Obviously, with not as many people that are on site, our site partners, I think Springstone is still not back to having in-person education yet, but you know, that's something that may come on soon. We have other things going on, the wayfinding, the signage that's going to be installed very soon. We've been working on that for the better part of a year, and now it's almost coming to completion here. It's going to be installed pretty soon. We have some site security issues. If any of you have ever walked through our doors, you know that we are in dire need of upgrading.
You can always walk through our doors.
That's right. You can just walk through our doors. That's the problem. So hopefully this is not being broadcast far and wide. But
now we fixed some of that.
We are wrestling with that. And then, of course, we have the kitchen and fellowship remodel, which, of course, is kind of ground to a halt as a result of, you know, the permitting processes slowed down to a trickle. On the flip side, you have contractors who are probably busier than ever, and then they're having issues with supply chains and things like that. So that's it's kind of gone to a much slower pace. But that is now, we're getting through the permitting process thanks to Tom Heyman, who's really shepherding that. So we're focusing on that, and hopefully we'll get the shovel in the ground. I'm hoping by summer, but that's probably a little. Tom's probably saying no possible way. We're hoping to get that moving before the year's end at least. You know, and then on top of all that, as you've kind of mentioned before, is at some point there's a light at the end of the tunnel now, right? And we probably will see ourselves having to try to wrestle with when do we go back to in-person worship and kind of what that might look like. So that has actually, I mean, that mouthful right there is kind of what we talked about the last council meeting, and so that's just an awful lot of stuff that we're really kind of on our plate right now. And so a lot of that can't be done obviously without, you know, a healthy budget. And I just also want to kind of point out that we were lucky to have Chris House, who really took the initiative and put in a huge effort in getting the church PPP loan approved. And that has helped keep our budget pretty steady. We have, you know, remarkably stayed relatively within budget this year. And we're grateful to all the congregants and others who are, you know, remain contributing to us to be able to keep our, you know, lights on, but also to keep our worship and our program and our community activities going. Obviously, the list of things that we're grappling with comes with it a lot of dollar signs behind it. So, you know, I also use this as an opportunity to kind of pitch that, you know, I know at the beginning of the pandemic, I was worried that we were going to see a complete, you know, market catastrophe, and that hasn't happened, and that's been, you know, a good thing. You know, for a number of reasons, but also one of which is that I think personally, for many of us, that, you know, who maybe aren't in those jobs that have kind of gone by the wayside, you know, we didn't see a big downturn, and I'm hoping that those who can find their way to, you know, to increase their giving, or at least, you know, one time or continuously, because that will certainly help some of those things. The janitors, the office managers, I mean, these are things that were probably going to cost more than what we are currently paying. And I think we just realize that we're going to be challenging our budget again on that. So again, I'm very grateful to the congregation for doing what they can. And I know we're constantly, you know, squeezing, but you know, we do have some upcoming challenges, and hopefully we'll rise to the occasion again. So you mentioned kind of sparks, and you didn't mention that metaphor. It's funny because when you were talking about it, at first I thought you were going to say we were the spark, because when you think about it, different ways, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I think in some ways we are the spark that kind of moves the engine of Christianity, and or you know, or just being Christ to the world. And our little piece of the pie here in Lafayette, we're doing what we can, and the council is, you know, the folks on the council have been amazing this year, and they're wearing like 2 or 3 hats at the same time. So they're providing a lot of spark to the engine that is our Saviors right now. With a lot of stuff going on, we can definitely use some help. You know, I know there are people on council who are wearing 3 or 4 hats right now, doing different, because it's just easy. Hey, we have a volunteer, we need a volunteer. It's not easy because we can't get up in front of the congregation on a Sunday morning and say, oh, you know, we can use a volunteer for this. We have you, Dan, on, you know, Facebook Live in the morning and at drive-in, but we're really not capturing all of our congregants in knowing what our needs are. So I just wanted to spend the last minute or so just kind of talking a little about if you're looking to kind of help, and a lot of these are very short-term, only a couple hour projects. We could definitely use help if you're so inclined and have the ability, those who are out there listening. Number one, the nominating committee is getting started for council members. We definitely can use additional council members. A lot of times it's easy when the nominating committee person calls you and it's like, oh my gosh, all the things I got going on at work or in family life. But we'd ask you to really consider, you know, just taking that time. It's a little bit easier right now because, you know, I think we're probably for the foreseeable future, we're going to continue on Zoom. So
yeah.
As we've all been doing, we've been Zooming from, I think we've had people out camping, Zooming. They've been joining our council meeting from, I think we had someone from Utah last month.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can just be sitting, you know, carefully in your jammies somewhere, you know, home, So you know, you don't have to drive out at night to the church offices to join the council meeting. Chris House is going off. He's our treasurer. And so we do need to fill that. So if people have any particular skill there, that's going to be one big position that we really need to fill next year. So I'd put a plug for all those who, you know, maybe this is the year maybe to say yes. It's not a whole lot of work, you know, in the grand scheme of things, but it's definitely helpful to have more bodies and more minds helping us tackle the things we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Also, we mentioned Skip's, you know, retirement. We are going to, once we have our job descriptions done, we're going to need to put together a hiring committee. And so we'll need to get a couple of people, volunteers from the congregation who are willing to, you know, once we get the advertisement out there, to interview candidates and make recommendations on candidates, that sort of thing. So if that's an area you think you're interested in, please let us know. Again, that'll probably be, a lot of that will be by Zoom, I imagine, until we actually can actually meet in person, and the color codes of our county allow for a little bit more in-person meeting. I know Chris has been looking for a couple of people to help with his the annual financial review. That's only about a 2 or 3 hour chunk of work. I think we already have a couple people. We could use one more just to give another set of eyes. If you know how to balance a checkbook, this is a really easy thing to do. All we're doing is having you open up a month statement, a random month statement, banking statements, and looking at inflow and outflow. Does it match invoices? Does it match deposits? Just to make sure everything is looking relatively normal. That's something that all institutions should do, just to make sure that there isn't, you know, and I don't mean this to suggest anything about anybody. We have some great people here, but unfortunately, I've been involved in some nonprofits where, you know, and one locally here where that was not always the case. So having a financial review is very important, and a thing for healthy finances for our church. So again, maybe a 2 or 3 hour thing. You can take a box home and do it on your own time. You do not have to come into the church office. We could use maybe one more person for Sam Ledoux's ministry and context kind of committee. We meet twice, once during her first semester and then once next fall during the fall semester, just to chat with her, find out how things are going, give a little bit of feedback, you know, maybe a couple hours each meeting at most. So 2 meetings, once this semester, once next semester. So if you're inclined to join those of us who are on that committee, that would be a big help. And then I'm just going to put out a shout out for Martin. He's always looking for new voices on Sunday morning drive-in. If you're willing to read scripture and lead the prayers, he does all the work. You just supply the voice and come on out. You know, I know he would be happy to take on any newcomers. So if you're so inclined there, but those are kind of our immediate needs in terms of you know, kind of extra muscle, if you will, or extra people, volunteers. And I'm hoping that there might be a few out there who are, you know, who've thinking that maybe they have a few extra hours to help with that.
That's awesome, Mark. Thanks for sharing all that. I mean, it's just great to help folks because, like you say, we've not come together like this to hear from you as the president since this all got started collectively like this. So I think the strategy now is to have you or somebody from council come like once a month, be right, to this sort of format to just give an update. And we integrate that into sort of our announcement time once a month. So you'll be back, would be my guess.
Or else I'll just tap someone else. So
well, now you've mastered the technology. I think, you know, you're going to be a natural at it.
Okay.
All right, Mark. So Mark's going to stay on the line. For those of you who've joined us on Facebook Live, we're going to bring that Facebook Live to an ending. So thanks for being a part of today. And as we bring Facebook Live to an end, we'll open up this space for those of you who want to join us for a coffee hour and give you a chance to ask Mark some questions. So we're going to keep Mark on the line. Sam Ledoux will join as well and kind of facilitate a conversation, kind of like we would after an annual meeting where you kind of ask Mark questions that you have or share some thoughts or volunteer for something even. So join us for our our digital coffee hour that'll come up as soon as I end this feed. So thanks for being a part of today.